Consider more than just the enchantment and the mouse Walt Disney's daughters lived if you believe you know the Disney family. Lives that are much more dramatic and intricate than any fairy tale. Sharon and Diane Disney weren't merely supporting characters. They had their own amazing journeys filled with victories, setbacks, significant accomplishments, and heartbreaking struggles that were largely kept secret from the public. Let's take a look at what actually happened to Walt Disney's daughters as they explored their lives beyond their father's enormous shadow. Number 2. Diane Miller was born on December 18, 1933, and her birth made headlines in the media when it was announced that Mickey Mouse had a daughter following past heartbreaks. Diane was a blessing to her parents, and Walt was thrilled to write about parenthood while already purchasing a pony for the unborn child. A few years later, her younger sister Sharon May was adopted. As a child, Diane recalled looking into the bathtub at her new sister. Growing up, Disney meant protection following the shocking Lindbergh infant snatching. Walt and Lillian kept his girls out of the spotlight so they could lead normal lives in spite of his notoriety. Diana recalled Walt as a kind, loving father and dependable friend who taught her to ride horses, swim with them, and even make props for school plays. He was just a father figure who encouraged them to go their own way. In fact, they famously pushed him to create Mary Poppins after they loved the book and the Disney origin story. It all began on a park bench as Diane and Sharon rode the Griffith Park carousel repeatedly. Realizing that parents needed something enjoyable to do as well, Diane watched and realized that this simple family outing inspired the idea for a park where everyone could have fun together. Diane studied English at USC, where she met football player Ron Miller on a blind date. They married quickly in 1954, and Walt reportedly sobbed during the ceremony. For years, Diane focused on keeping her family private, but later in life, things changed. Her mother, Lillian, passed away in 1997. And Diane became worried about the false representations of her father. This private woman felt obligated to step up and become a public advocate for major projects and for her father's true story. Diane had a lifelong passion for classical music, which drove her fight for the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Her mother had made a sizable initial donation, but the project stalled after Lillian's passing. When others tried to compromise, Diane used the remaining family foundation funds as leverage to keep Gary and his vision intact or risk losing the money. Her husband Ron said she was more resilient than hell when fighting for it. Thanks in large part to her perseverance, the stunning hall opened in 2003 as a non-profit tribute to Walt and a gift to Los Angeles. At the same time, she took on another ambitious project, the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. She was concerned that her father was only being used as a corporate logo or as the subject of myths, so she insisted on showing him as a brilliant, complex, and human being rather than just a sugar-coated tribute. She co-founded the museum with her son Walter, which opened in 2009 and is independent from the Disney Corporation. The museum serves as her definitive book about her father, using artifacts, Walt's own voice, and historical context to tell his story truthfully. In addition, Diane and Ron established the renowned Silverado Vineyards in the Napa Valley in 1981. They made the area their home and were well known for their local charity, which included funding a music festival and the medical treatment of vineyard workers. Following a fall, Diane died in 2013 at the age of 79. She left behind her family, the famous music hall, the important family museum, and the Silverado Vineyards. Saving Mr. Banks, a movie about the creation of Mary Poppins, was eloquently devoted to her number 1, Sharon May Disney. Born in late 1936, she was adopted as a baby after Lillian was counseled not to have any more children. Lillian and Walt kept the adoption private in order to shield Sharon from unwanted attention and the stigma sometimes attached to adoption. Like Diane, Sharon grew up protected from the intense spotlight. As she famously stated, "We were never raised with the idea that my father was a great man, he was daddy." She talked about the family get-togethers that inspired Disneyland, such as the park excursions. Due to their distinct sheltered upbringing, she and Diane developed a strong friendship. Shortly after her father's death in 1969, Sharon married William Lond, a real estate developer who had assisted in finding the land for Walt Disney World. They had twins Brad and Michelle in 1970, but this marriage also ended with Sharon filing for divorce in 1976. Sharon had married Robert Brown in 1959, and they had a daughter named Victoria, who was reportedly adopted. Tragically, Robert died of cancer in 1967, leaving Sharon a young widow. Diane and Sharon wasn't entirely removed from the Disney World. She had tiny acting roles as a teen. More significantly, she was involved in Retlaw Enterprises, the family's private company holding Walt's name, rights, and other assets. She was an owner and officer. She also served on the board of directors of the Walt Disney Company from 1984, a critical time of corporate change, until her death. Sharon was also active in philanthropy, serving as a trustee for places like CalArts, founded by her father. Sharon May Disneyland died of breast cancer in 1993 at age 56. Her philanthropic legacy continued immediately through the Sharon D. Lund Foundation, which made major donations in her name, notably establishing the Sharon Disney Lund School of Dance at CalArts and a Medical Innovation Institute at Cheok Children's Hospital. However, a darker legacy unfolded around the massive inheritance she left her 3 children, Victoria, Brad, and Michelle. Trusts worth around $400 million. The trusts contained a vital catch: if trustees, including family members, believed a beneficiary lacked the maturity and financial capacity to manage the funds, they might withhold dividends that were due every 5 years beginning at age 35. This provision resulted in decades of suffering and court disputes. Victoria, who apparently battled addiction, received her age 35 settlement but passed just a year later. Her half-siblings received her part. Brad and Michelle also had difficulties, such as a brain aneurysm, but she was paid at 35 and 40. Brad, on the other hand, had his payments regularly withheld at 35, 40, and 45 because the trustees were worried about his cognitive abilities, even though the precise diagnosis was contested, and his capacity to handle the funds, ultimately preventing access to about $200 million. This unfair treatment led to resentful litigation. Brad claimed that his inheritance was being unfairly held captive by the trustees. Although courts frequently upheld the trust's authority under its language, the fight pitted family members against one another, raising doubts about each other's competence and motivations. The situation remained extremely polarizing, and what was probably meant as protection turned into a source of intense conflict that overshadowed Sharon's memory.